Okay, good afternoon, Facebook. So I want to talk to you about Tantra because on Tuesday night I'm starting to teach regular Tantra classes again at my home here in Langholm. And I felt like it would be kind of useful to talk about what that even means, what Tantra's about. And so I've kind of gone to my library and I've picked out some of my favorite Tantra books. Introduction to Tantra. This one's Buddhism, Tantra Buddhism. This one here, which is an amazing text, and a few other books. And just to really dive in and remind myself, because I'm no scholar at all when it comes to this stuff, yet I have lived and practiced it for about the last, 10, 15, 20 years or so. So what is Tantra exactly? Tantra itself simply means teaching. Like the word simply means teaching. And there's a few different strains, and like I said, I'm not really a scholar on this, but what's happened in the West is that the practice of Tantra has tended to be conflated with conscious sexuality, as if those two things are one and the same, and they're not at all. So traditional Tantra doesn't really have much to do with sex, although you may be engaging in sex using tantric practices. It's not because the sex itself is Tantra. There's a real difference. So I wanted to actually read you a little bit from this one, Introduction to Tantra. And like I said, this one it's Buddhism Tantra, because Tantra ended up going that way as well. Let me just see here. I love this. According to Tantra, perfection is not something that is waiting for us somewhere in the future. If I practice hard now, I will become a perfect Buddha. If I behave well in this life and act like a religious person, maybe someday I'll go to heaven. According to Tantra, heaven is now. So this is one of the major things with Tantra practice, is that it holds that the whole point of the practice, the whole point of Tantra is to drop into the consciousness, to drop into the I am, to know yourself as consciousness in this very moment. No matter what it is that's occurring in your life, no matter what it is that you're doing, you can be taking a piss and practicing Tantra, as long as you're really connected to consciousness, to the I am, to the witness. And then it goes on to say, every man and woman contains both male and female energy. And in fact, each of us is a union of all universal energy. Everything that we need in order to be complete is within us right at this very moment. It is simply a matter of being able to recognize it. This is the tantric approach. And I love this, right? Everything that we need in order to be able to be complete is within us right at this very moment. So the essence of a tantric practice, no matter what that practice might look at, is to bring you into knowingness of that, into union with that. It's to bring you into that sense of knowing yourself as complete, of knowing both of your Shakti aspects and your Shiva aspects, right? And feeling that union within and knowing that this is who you are. And I mean, if I was going to put Tantra into like one sentence, that would be it. So this is from this book here that I've just been reading. There's another, I know it's backwards, you guys see it backwards, but there you go. And then this is one of my favorites as well. I can't pronounce it, but it's Song of the Sacred Tremor. It's a text from, I think, the 9th century that this guy like downloaded. And it's got, I don't know, 100, it's got all these little sutras, kind of like the Yoga Sutras, but a little bit different. And I love this one. So this is Sutra number 5. In the absolute sense, pleasure and suffering, subject and object, are nothing other than the space of profound consciousness. And that's it. Like if you can feel that sutra, if you can understand that sutra, and I'll read it again for you. In the absolute sense, pleasure and suffering, subject and object, are nothing other than the space of profound consciousness. And so that space of profound consciousness, that's the whole purpose of Tantra, is to know yourself as that. It's to move beyond identifying with the mind, beyond identifying with the feelings, and beyond identifying with the body, to know yourself as consciousness. And that happens when we learn to witness ourselves in action. So we begin to watch our thoughts. We begin to hold our emotions as they move through us. We begin to perceive that we are not the body. Like if you look at your body, how much has it changed over your lifetime? You know, when you were born, it was a little baby body, right? And then as you grow older and you age and you die, it's going to be completely different all along the way. So how can you be your body? It is constantly changing. So the Tantra practice that I am going to be teaching every Tuesday for the next 10 weeks is a really, really simple practice, and yet it is so deep, and it is so, oh my God, there is so much in it. Like, I've been practicing this since 2010, and I really committed to it about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and I've been doing it every single day. And even though the practice is the same, right, I'm different every day. So when I show up and I do this practice, it's always different, and I'm always discovering and learning new things. And it blows me away. It so blows me away. So I'm pretty excited to share it with people because I haven't taught it before. And I'm going to be teaching it in person only. I've had a few people contact me and say, hey, I really want to come. Can we do it online? And I don't know, it feels really important to me at this stage in time to teach this practice in person, because what I'm sharing is not just the how-to of the practice. It's not just put your body here, chant this thing, put your fingers in this mudra, have this visualization, like that's information delivery. That's fine online. But it's the energetic transmission of me in that space of consciousness as much as I'm able to from the practice I've done over the years. And when I hold that space of consciousness with a group of people, what begins to happen is called entrainment. It's as if where I am and where they are begin to entrain with each other. And so the person who is doing the practice that I'm leading, because I do the practice with for a little while, it's like they can hijack, they can hitchhike on my experience, right? Because I've done all this work and I've done it over and over again. And so they might have only been stepping into doing the practice for the first time, but because I'm doing it with them energetically, it's like they can feel that and almost drop into my experience so they can go deeper faster. And while that may be possible to transmit that online, I just really want to focus on the in-person transmission. And the reason for that, the other reason is that when I'm working with someone in person, I'm able to see them, I'm able to watch them, and I can see what's happening psychologically as they're doing the practice. And because I can see what's happening for them psychologically, then I'm going to be able to give them one-on-one instruction. So then I can offer little suggestions that help them move deeper into the practice and let go of more mind, let go of whatever feelings are coming up, or make sense of the experience that they're having. So yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see what occurs. What else do I need to say about Tantra? So the way that it works for me is that, I have my daily practice when I sit down and I do the thing, I do the practice. And the practice is very much about moving between dual energies, and those dual energies being Shakti and Shiva, sometimes referred to as the masculine and feminine forces of the universe. Shakti is like energy, it's movement, and Shiva is the stillness, it's consciousness itself, it's awareness. And the idea, the intent behind the practice is to cultivate both of those aspects. So we are calling Shakti up. We're asking Kundalini, which is an aspect of Shakti, to begin to rise in our spine, begin to rise in our body, even as we're calling Shiva down, so it's like we're literally calling Shiva down through the crown of the head. And both of those forces, Shakti coming up, Shiva coming down, are coming into our heart space. And in the heart space, Shakti and Shiva meet. And this is the union, right? So the union of Shakti and Shiva, we talk about union in yoga, like the word yoga means union. Well, this is the union that it's referring to, or one of them, one way to look at it. And so what happens when these two different energies, when the polarities, when the dualities of the universe come together in our heart space, is like this birth of a new consciousness. And that's when you drop into, I guess, a non-dual reality is a way to describe it. And what's fascinating for me is like doing this practice day after day after day after day is noticing the shifts, noticing the changes, noticing how even though the practice is the same, I'm different. And so what I notice is that when I'm bringing Kundalini up, Shakti up, that often it'll be hitting up against blockages, or there'll be tension in the body. And so I can sense that. And my job as the practitioner, the tantrika, doing it is to notice when that happens, to notice when there's a tension, to notice when there's a grasping, when there's a holding, and to allow myself to soften, to allow myself to let go, to allow Kundalini to continue to move. And it's the same thing, like when I'm bringing Shiva down, like sometimes that channel feels really clear and open, and sometimes it feels really blocked and tight. So my job is to notice what is occurring, and to see if I notice it's feeling really constricted, constrained, blocked, can I soften? Can I open? Can I allow? Can I let Shiva come down into the heart space? And if you have any questions about this as I'm speaking, please by all means put them down. So we're talking about Tantra and what it really is, and the practice that I'm going to start to share on Tuesdays here in Langholm in Auckland. So one of the reasons why Tantra is often confused with sex is the way that, and maybe we'll call it Neo-Tantra or Western Tantra for ease. It's kind of like people took one little aspect of the practice and they applied it to sexuality, and then they began to teach the sexuality stuff using that little aspect of Tantra and calling it Tantra. And it's been one of the reasons why I've been kind of hesitant to say that I practice and teach Tantra yoga, because I didn't want people to get confused. I felt like the ground was already occupied by Neo-Tantra or by Western Tantra, or whatever you want to call it. But then, then I go and pick up one of these books, and I pick up the Song of the Sacred Tremor, this text written in the 19th century, and I just love it. I love it. So the one I read out to you, I'm going to read it out to you again. In the absolute sense, pleasure and suffering, subject and object, are nothing other than the space of profound consciousness. And so the way that I understand that, or the way I'm beginning to experience that in my life, and it's extraordinary, is that instead of being immersed in and identified with either the pleasure or the suffering, I'm more and more able to anchor into that space of pure consciousness where the pleasure is happening, but it is not me, and the suffering is happening, and it's not me either. And what I notice is from that space of being anchored in consciousness, even the suffering feels good, because it feels alive. It feels like energy. It just feels really sweet. Like there's this immense gratitude that I'm alive in a human body and able to feel this, even though it's suffering. And this is what I'm finding really extraordinary through the practice of Tantra daily, is that it's shifted the ground of relating for me. It has shifted my perception of the world. It's shifted my perception of what it means to be a human being. And if we go into the next sutra of the Song of the Sacred Tremor, number 6. So with the one we just had, in the absolute sense, these things are nothing other than the space of pure consciousness. To grasp this fundamental truth is to see absolute freedom everywhere. Thus, the activity of the senses itself dwells in this fundamental freedom and pours forth from it. To grasp this fundamental truth is to see absolute freedom everywhere. And this is what I'm beginning to know more and more, is that no matter what I'm doing, even if it's something I don't want to be doing, even if it's something I think I hate, as long as I can orientate myself in the place of pure consciousness, then it's like I'm living in bliss and ecstasy. And it's just like, wow, I could be cleaning the toilet. And I had this experience. I'll be cleaning the toilet and I'll notice that I'm wanting to get it done. I'm wanting to get it over. I'm not liking it. And then I'll just go, wait a second, and I'll drop deep down into consciousness. And then all of a sudden, the toilet is just being cleaned. Like it's just happening, and I'm anchored in consciousness, and it's just beautiful. It all shifts. It all shifts. And that right there is the essence of Tantra. It is the ability in any moment to notice where you are in relationship to your perception of self, where you are in relationship to the world out there, and to choose. When you notice, then the next thing is to choose to drop down into the space of consciousness and to anchor in consciousness. And then from that space of anchoring in consciousness, one is awake in that moment, and there's no more aversion, and there's no more grasping. Those things just, they dissipate, they melt away completely. And so this is how I live my Tantra. This is how Tantra comes through me on a daily basis. And that comes from, the foundation of that is my practice. And like I say, I've been practicing this particular Tantra practice for about 8 years, since 2010. And I've been fully committed to it as a daily practice for the last 4 years. I've done like 1,200 days in a row, minus about 8 days. And my commitment to myself is to do 1,000 days in a row. I'm on the third attempt right now. I'm on day 257, I think. And I'm ready to share. It came through pretty clearly when I was doing a practice about 2 or 3 months. It was like I was in one of the mudras, the body mudras that can come through in this practice, and I'm in it. And I heard it inside. It was like, you can teach this now. And it was like, part of me was like, what, me? No, I can't teach this. Yeah, you can teach this now. It's like, whoa. And it's taken me a few months to get around to it. But I'm starting on Tuesday night. So if you'd like to know more about studying Tantra Yoga with me, by all means, just send me a message and I can have a chat to you about that. If you'd like me to do more Facebook Lives on any aspect of this, if you've got questions, let me know, because I'm happy to do that as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. It's really beautiful to see you guys there, and I hope you have an amazing Saturday. My name is Kara-Leah. You know where to find me because you're already there, right? Facebook.